Well, I'm delighted to welcome once again Andy Godfrey from Sorted Magazine to bring us some more movie reviews this week. Hello, Andy. Great to see you, my friend.
Hey Nathan, it's good to see you too. And I've been so looking forward to talking to you. One of the reasons is that we've actually got some new films to review,
Wow, awesome.
including one that's actually coming out today that I've actually seen in advance.
Oh, awesome.
So we can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, how you doing? All right?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I'm okay. So shall we dive straight in with some new films or
Yeah, that sounds great.
okay. So I've seen four at the cinema this week. Uh, three of which are out already, and one of which is coming out today. So we can just briefly talk about those if you like. Give people a heads up on what's out there in cinemas. So one that I really enjoyed this week is a film called The Critic. So we are in London. It's 1934, and so Ian McKellen is a drama critic for a national newspaper, and maybe I don't know. I was going to say like me, but he's got a bit of a reputation for liking to have a rant. You know, he likes to have a rant. If he sees a bad performance in a play, he doesn't hold back. You know, the only problem is in 1934, he's gay, and the newspaper don't like having a gay person on their staff because of his behavior. He gets sacked. He then hatches a plan to get his job back. He hatches a plan to blackmail the editor of the newspaper he's been writing for in order to get his job back. This plan involves employing the services of a young actress who he has been slating. I mean, he's been so critical about this girl. He's been ripping her off. He's been telling everybody what a dreadful actress she is. But suddenly he needs her for this particular plan that he's hatched in order to blackmail the editor of the newspaper. Now, this is really, really good. This is really good. I mean, just put the gay stuff aside for 1 minute. This is a really good plot. This is a really good story. This is a really good thriller set in the West End of London, in the dramatic world of theatre. I really enjoyed it. I mean, Ian McKellen, as we know, was born to play Gandalf in Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings. He was born for that role, wasn't he, really?
absolutely.
Um, and he is born to play this role. I mean, a lovey-dovey theatre critic, you know, who is outspoken. He is absolutely brilliant. Gemma Arterton is the actress that he's been slating off, but now he needs her help in order to for this plot, which I don't want to talk about the plot because it would be a plot spoiler, quite literally. And she is excellent as well. And Gemma Arterton is a great actress. She's been in some really good films. I've actually met Ian McKellen.
Huh?
He came to Milton Keynes with Patrick Stewart, and they did a play called Waiting for Godot, and I went to the stage door, and I was able to have quite a good chat with Sir Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and I've got the program framed on the wall behind me in the room where I'm sitting that he signed. Lovely, lovely guy, lovely guy, great actor. The Critic is, I think, worth seeing. Most critics I've read have loved it, so that's really good. Even better, even better is a film called Lee, which is a Sky original and which is showing in cinemas at the moment. So, Lee is a story of a woman photographer at the end of the Second World War. Her name was Lee Miller. She was an American living in London. She was taking photographs for Vogue magazine, and she said, "I'm going to go out." Despite being a woman, despite the fact that I'm actually not allowed officially to do this, I'm going to go out to the front line and I'm going to take photographs to show people what's really going on. And this brave woman, she actually not only she got out onto the front line just as the war was coming to an end, and she was taking pictures of, for example, on one, she was actually able to get into Hitler's home, and she actually took a picture of it, had a picture taken of herself in Hitler's bathtub because Hitler is now dead. He's committed suicide. And she was also one of the first women to get into the concentration camps. She was in Belsen and a few other concentration camps. Horrified, of course, by what she saw. You know, they found bodies piled up in trains. They found bodies piled up in gas chambers. They found bodies, and she took photographs and brought the truth back to the world. The tragedy was that the British government said, we can't publish these pictures. They are too horrifying. They are too shocking. They are too, nauseating. The public will not want to see these pictures. So what they did was they sent her pictures to America for the American edition of Vogue, and they did publish them. And right at the end of the film, it's worth staying for the end of the film. At the end credits, you actually get to see these photographs that she took. Horrific images, but bodies everywhere, blood everywhere, devastation, bombed out buildings, all the rest of it. Bodies lying in the streets, bodies in the concentration camps. But what it did was it brought home to the world, probably for the first time, as the war was actually ending, the reality of what was taking place, the reality of what had happened, the reality of the concentration camps, Now, I don't know if she ever got to Auschwitz. I mean, I've been to Auschwitz several times. Auschwitz, you stand in a gas chamber and you can't begin to conceive what was going through the minds of people who basically the concentration camps were death factories, The people would arrive on the train, they'd be put here, they'd be put there, they'd be killed, and then there was a whole process for getting them burnt. It's horrific. But this woman, Lee Miller, was incredibly brave. And the film is structured. You think she's being interviewed by a journalist about her life. Kate Winslet plays Lee Miller. Kate Winslet's a great actress, as we know. But she plays herself as the younger woman, and then she plays herself as the older woman. So she's being interviewed by what you think is a journalist, but actually it isn't. So go see the film. Go see it. It'll turn up on Sky very soon. It's a Sky film. Really, really good. Another new one that's out. Shall I keep going?
Yeah, go on.
I'll talk for England. A film called Speak No Evil. So in 2022, a Danish film came out called Speak No Evil, and this is the English remake. But what they've done is they've changed the ending. So the first one had quite a horrific ending. This one has got a bad ending, but it's a psychological thriller. So you've got two families who meet on holiday in Italy. One is an American family living in London. The other family live in the West Country, my part of the world. They live in the West Country. He's a doctor. The doctor says to the Americans, "Oh, you must come and visit us. You'll love the West Country. Come and visit us." So the Americans say, "Right, yeah, we'll come and visit you in your home in the West Country." So they drive off. They find the home. It's an isolated farm in the middle of nowhere, and they spend a weekend with their new friends who they met on holiday. You start to realize that something is very, very wrong with the West Country people. So, for example, on holiday, the wife of the American couple had said, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian." They get to the doctor's farm in the West Country, and the doctor says, "Oh, we've got a meal for you. Welcome. We sit down for a meal. We've cooked our best goose, and we're sure you're going to love it." Hang on, she told him she's a vegetarian. And that's just the first thing. And it starts to get weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder. And this guy becomes more and more creepy. And the West Country couple have got a little boy who can't talk. He's got a condition. He was born with a condition whereby his tongue's too small. But he clearly knows what is wrong with his mum and dad. He clearly knows what his mum and dad are up to. And his mum and dad are clearly up to something because they start behaving really, really weirdly. And eventually our American couple have to try and escape, despite the fact that doctor from the West Country punctures their tires and all sorts of things, So this turns into a psychological thriller. The first one was much more of a horror film. They've changed the ending with this. I thought it was really creepy. I mean, I literally was at times watching it through my fingers, which is in a good way. You want a creepy film to be creepy. I've seen so many films that purport to be creepy that aren't. They just don't scare you at all. They just don't unnerve you at all. I think, we've talked about this. There are some films that claim to be horror films, and you just sit there and think, "Oh, you're boring." This is really, really genuinely creepy. James McAvoy plays the West Country doctor. Really, really creepy. I mean, genuine. So if you like creepy psychological horror stuff, this is a film for you. It's called Speak No Evil. And then one more new film, which is coming out today. So a couple of years ago, an animated film for children came out. It was called 100% Wolf, and it flopped. I mean, you can barely find the DVD, let alone the Blu-ray. Nobody went to see it. I didn't see it. It absolutely plummeted. It made no money at all. It was a very poor film. What it was about was on the moon, okay? There are spirits of werewolves, right? They are sending signals from the moon down to Earth. Now, this is a kids' film. Kids were supposed to follow this plot, right? This is why it plummeted. I can barely follow the plot. They were sending signals down to Earth, turning human beings into werewolves, but these are benevolent werewolves that are helping humanity. So, for example, if the werewolves become aware that a train's going to crash, they will put themselves in the place of the train if there's a car crash. These werewolves are benevolent werewolves that are supposed to be helping humanity, okay? Unfortunately, something goes wrong. They turn a little boy into a poodle. I have no idea why. I have no idea what's going on. Totally clueless. The film plummeted, right? Guess what? They've made a sequel. Why is beyond me, because if the first film plummeted and nobody went to see it, who on earth is going to want to see the sequel? Now, I did see the sequel this week. It's called 200% Wolf. Big surprise. It's rubbish. And it's a shame because the animation is beautiful. The first 10 minutes of this new film, we are on the moon, watching these werewolf spirits perform some kind of ceremony where they're sending a signal down to Earth. The animation, the 3D, it's stunning. It is absolutely beautiful to look at. And I sat back and I thought, wow, I haven't seen the first one, but this is, I'm enjoying this. And then suddenly we're down on Earth with this poodle who's supposed to be a werewolf. I haven't got a clue what's going on. Some kind of baby spirit has fallen off the moon and landed on Earth, and they've got to get him back to the moon. And they've got to find a bad werewolf who knows how to get the baby spirit back to the moon and back to it's all over the place. It's a mess. It's a total and utter mess. And I just sat there. There was a critic showing. It was a press showing. 4 people turned up, including me. Right? That's how much coverage it's going to. You are probably the only radio station in the world that's going to get a review on this. So, Nathan, this is an exclusive.
Wow.
Okay, this is it's rubbish, but it's a shame because the animation's so good. And at the moment, you know, apart from films that have been around for a while, like Inside Out 2 and Despicable Me 4, there isn't much new for kids. And I went and thinking, great, this is going to be something new we can recommend to pure listeners with families, with kids. You know, don't waste your time. Don't waste. Go see Inside Out 2 again. I mean, seriously. I sat there with 3 other, and they were all from, they weren't from magazines. They were from basically people who review movies on their own websites, you know? So you're getting an exclusive. At least, you know, 200% Wolf is in cinemas today. Beautiful animation. The animation's glorious, but the story is all over the. I couldn't follow it, and I thought kids are supposed to follow this. You know. So those are the new films, anyway.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Andy. Some good ones to watch and maybe one to not watch.
Yes.
But of
Well,
course,
we've got a couple of new ones for home if people want something for the weekend.
yeah, that'd be great.
So just to highlight 2 films that are now coming on Netflix. Okay. So one is from this year, one is from a couple of years back. So a film called Plane. So this stars Gerald Butler, who is a pilot of a plane, and the film's called Plane. And the plane, what happens is the plane crashes in the jungle on New Year's Eve. It's actually millennium, 1999, 2000. Plane crashes in the jungle. He's on his way to New York, but they crash in Africa in a jungle. He has to get the passengers to safety. Turns out he used to be an SAS type guy, you know. So this is all guns blazing. The jungle is populated by terrorists and drug pushers, you know, gangs are roaming the jungle, and they got hideouts in the jungle. And he has to get his passengers from the site of the plane crash to safety. It's a pot boiler. It's a good, exciting popcorn thriller. It's on Netflix. I didn't think it was anything too special, but I think watching it at home, people will probably enjoy it more than I did going to the cinema to see it. Really good film. The other one that's out this year that may be of interest to some of our listeners because it's a musical biopic on Netflix now is Back to Black, which is the Amy Winehouse story. Now, a couple of years ago, a documentary came out called Amy, which was really hard hitting, which really delved into her life, which really showed how she was used and abused. It showed her drug abuse. It showed all her problems, and of course, centered on the song "Rehab." You know, Daddy said, "I've got to go to they want me to go to rehab." I said, "No, no, no." This new film isn't quite so hard hitting. It isn't quite. It's a bit more palatable, but it's on Netflix. If you're interested in Amy Winehouse, I mean, we've had some great rock. I think we talked about this before, but we had the Freddie Mercury story in Bohemian Rhapsody. We had Elton John's story in Rocket Man. We had One Love, which was the Bob Marley story. We had I Want to Dance with Somebody, which was Whitney Houston, or was it? You know, so. Um, we've had a number of these. This is another one. It's fairly bog standard biographical pick, but if you're interested in Amy Winehouse, it is now on Netflix, so widely available. Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Andy. Some great films there to watch over the weekend,
yeah.
and maybe one or two to avoid. But yeah, that is the point of movie reviews, is it not?
Do not go and see. Do not waste your money on 200% Wolf, please.
All right.
Even if you've seen the original, just don't.
Awesome. Well, some great movies there. But as we come to the end of movie reviews, I think it's only fitting that we perhaps look at some of the favorite films of Steve Legg, who sadly passed away this week.
Yeah, I mean, I have cried buckets this week, Nathan, and I know there are more tears to come. I know there are.
Yeah.
So our great friend and friend of Pure 24/7, and obviously the creator and editor of Sorted magazine, Steve Legg, passed away this week. We had him for a year longer than we thought we were going to. Steve was one of the most generous, kindest, warm-hearted, lovely men I have ever met. I cannot speak too highly of Steve. He was a great evangelist. He loved the Lord. His gigs, he did comedy and magic gigs, and he used to say, "If it's not funny, it's still magic." I can hear him saying that. Steve was just one of the most wonderful person I have met in my 62 years on this planet, and I am missing him so much. I can't begin to tell you. And I owe Steve a debt for many reasons, and I know Pure owes Steve a debt as well. And we want to pay tribute to this wonderful, wonderful man. So 6 years ago, I met Steve properly. I'd met him before, but I met him properly. We became friends at Spring Harvest, and Steve needed somebody to write film reviews for Sorted magazine, and I was writing film reviews for another publication. And I told him that I'm a movie obsessive, and I told him about my, 3,000 DVDs and so on that I have. And Steve said, "Andy, would you write film reviews for Sorted?" Now, what I didn't know at the time was that he was about to make my boyhood dream come true. Because when I was a boy and obsessed with movies, and I've been obsessed with movies all my life, I'd wanted to be quoted on a movie poster. I'd wanted to see on a movie poster, "This film is brilliant, Andy Godfrey." What I didn't know when I said yes to Steve that I would write for Sorted was that he had good contacts with all the film distribution companies in this country. That means that we at Sorted get invited to these press screenings and sometimes premieres. And I didn't know that. And Steve said, "Oh, you'll start to go to press screenings." What? This is my boyhood dream come true, to be sitting in a room with other journalists watching a film that's not going to come out for 2 months. And when you go to a press screening, they always ask you for your thoughts afterwards. They've shown you the film for free. They ask you just to email back and tell them what you thought of the film. I did tell them what I thought of Wolf 2000 or 2000 Wolf. The result of that is that over the last 6 years, we've had Sorted quoted on 13 movie posters and trailers and Blu-ray covers. And I've got them all printed up in a folder. And I showed them to one of the last things I ever did was I showed Steve the folder, and he was so thrilled to see Sorted being quoted on movie posters. I remember, and in fact, one of the films was a film called Fall. It's a film that came out about 2 years ago. It's my favorite film of the year. Of that year, it was about two girls who climb a tower in the middle of nowhere. This very old rickety radio tower, 2,000 feet up. They get to the top. What happens? The ladder falls away. How are they going to get down? It's an absolutely sensational film. I gave it 5 stars, and much to my great delight, when the poster came out, it said 5 stars, Sorted magazine on the poster. And Steve loved that film as well. Steve absolutely loved that film, and he was so thrilled that he got that poster and he had it blown up and he had it framed for me. And if anybody's watching the video of this, you can see it to the right of me on the wall. That was a present from Steve Legg, and that's never moving. That's not going anywhere. They can demolish this house. That's staying put. Because Steve had that done for me. He was so kind. That was who Steve was. Steve was the most generous, kind, caring, sincere, lovely, and funny man I have ever met. And he had that poster done for me of this film Fall. Steve's favourite films were the Die Hard movies. Steve loved Die Hard. He loved Die Hard 2. I think he liked Die Hard 2 more than he loved Die Hard 1. And when we went to events together, Steve would bring, as you know, T-shirts and hoodies for sale. And this year, he had made up a Die Hard T-shirt and a Die Hard hoodie. And in fact, it sold really well to commemorate that film, because Steve loved Die Hard and he loved Die Hard 2. He loved action movies, you know. There was a film came out a couple of years ago called Bullet Train. And I remember leaving the cinema and actually phoning Steve as I was leaving the cinema saying, Steve, you got to go and see this. You'll love it. And he did go and see it and he did love it. I don't know what else to say about Steve. I mean, Steve was just, there are many, many people in heaven who I hope he's meeting right now, who were there because Steve told them about Jesus, who wouldn't have been there if Steve hadn't told them about Jesus. Heaven has become a funnier place. I mean, in my obituary, I said that, Steve, my friend, do what you do best with the angels and the good Lord, tell them some jokes. You know, heaven's become a much funnier place. I mean, Steve was hilarious. I think my favourite Steve Legg line of all was, he would stand on stage and he would say, I used to do a lot of work in prisons. And he'd point at a random guy in the audience and say, good to see you again, sir. You know, and I love Steve. I love Steve dearly. I know you guys did at Pure.
Yeah.
He was loved at the Gathering. He was loved at Spring Harvest. He was loved at New Wine. He was loved by the many churches all around the world. He travelled over 1 million miles because he would keep a record, which is, you know, incredible. I've travelled a bit. I've travelled to Kazakhstan and back, and Nicaragua and a few places. I haven't kept a record of how many miles. Steve kept a record. Steve travelled over 1 million miles telling people about Jesus, you know. And so now all of our thoughts and our love and our prayers must turn to Becca, his wonderful wife. I mean, Becca has just been incredible through Steve's illness, through the whole time he's been diagnosed. I mean, she first spotted the melanoma, the little bit of cancer on his foot, and set this whole thing in motion. All our love, thoughts, and prayers must turn to Becca, to the girls. Steve lived an extra year longer than he should have done. He got to see his granddaughter born, which was fantastic. He got to help you guys at Pure. He got to help me launch my book. If anybody's got my book, he wrote the foreword. I'm working on a sequel. It's obviously, there is no doubt about it, it's going to be dedicated to Steve. Keep an eye open for the next Sorted, because obviously, you know, you will see Steve just on, you know, Sorted was Steve's baby. So yeah, so Steve's favourite films were the Die Hard films, and in fact, I am planning this evening just to put my feet up and watch Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2, as a kind of tribute to Steve, because he was just... But I mean, what else can we say, Nathan? He was Steve Legg, and he was just the most wonderful friend. You know, he would text me out of the blue some days and just say, hi, buddy, how you doing? You know, maybe I hadn't heard from him for a couple of days or a week. Suddenly a text would arrive out of the blue. He cared, he loved. He was most brilliant. I mean, I'm an evangelist. I've been preaching for 50 years, just under 50 years. Steve was the most brilliant communicator. He had certain standards, you know. I mean, the books and the magazines. You were with us at the Gathering, where we had books and magazines on the table. They had to be piled in a certain way. They had to be dead straight. You know, he said he was very fussy, and he was. You know, the T-shirts that we were selling all had to be folded in a particular way. You know, and if they weren't, he would come around and refold them. You know, but that was just Steve, and he was a brilliant communicator, brilliant magician, absolutely incredible. Member of the Magic Circle, film critic as well. He loved his movies, and of course, above and beyond anything else, he loved his family and his Lord, and he's with his Lord now. And I look forward to seeing him again one day. And I
Yeah,
hope and pray that he is meeting all those people that are in heaven who wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for him, perhaps, you know. So God bless you, Becca, if you hear this, and the family. All our love, thoughts, and prayers are with you. And we miss Steve, but you're missing him more. So we're praying for you. And thank you, Nathan, for letting me just share my memories of Steve. Steve was just the best friend anybody could ever wish to have. And you and I knew him, and what a privilege to call Steve Legg our friend.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much, Andy.
Okay.
Wonderful tribute to Steve, and I do hope you enjoy Die Hard tonight.
Yeah, as I said, I'm going to sit and watch it, and I'm going to think of Steve, and I may even watch Fall as well. I might have a bit of a late night because yeah. So I will enjoy it. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I will argue with anybody who says it isn't. So would Steve. But it feels right to watch it tonight. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Great to speak to you, and hope you have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Nathan. God bless you, and God bless Pure.